Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. Now I do apologise for the mess behind me. I am currently a day away from going to London, and so obviously I'm packing all of my stuff and I had it out, and to be honest I just didn't want to put it away. That may reek of laziness, but it's what I had to do. But today I am back to do a quick tag. In fact, I think this week is probably going to be a tag heavy week because of the fact that I am going to London and obviously won't have quite as much time to edit. So I'm probably going to be focusing on the shorter videos that are quick to edit, and tags definitely count as that, I think. And I'm actually being fairly speedy with how quickly I'm doing a tag, because yesterday, which will have been Saturday the 27th, Kieran over at KD Books tagged me in his original tag, theyre 10 but. So riffing on the meme of theyre 10 but, and applying that to books. Talking about books that otherwise would be 10 out of 10 for you, but there is a slight little thing about them that you feel like you should warn people about. But yeah, without much further ado, let's just get into the questions. Question number 1 is, theyre 10 but they're over 500 pages long. And now it couldn't be a book tag done by KD Books and me responding to KD Books without me trolling him a little bit, just a little bit. And of course, I have to say, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. If you don't know the origin of me and Kieran and Les Mis, then I highly recommend that you check out the playlist that is going to be linked in the description. It's pretty much linked in all of my descriptions at this point, of me and him reading Les Mis, me for the second time, him for the first. It's something that I've been pestering him to do for quite a while, and I was very glad to finally do it. I actually still have not repaid my end of the bargain, which is reading Ulysses. And at some point before the end of the year, we do have to do that, Kieran. Please don't make me read Ulysses over Christmas. And yeah, I absolutely adore Les Mis. It is a 10 out of 10 book for me, digressions included. Yes, Victor Hugo goes on very lengthy digressions about the Paris sewage system and the Battle of Waterloo, but for me it's a fun quirk of the book. I had the same thing when reading Hunchback of Notre Dame. He would every now and then go on a digression about something, and I'd be just like, oh, classic Victor. Of course you would want to do a big long essay in the middle of your story. But for me, Les Mis is just such an excellent tale, and like I say, if you want to hear me talk about it more, then link below. I got a whole playlist of me gushing about Les Mis. Question number 2 is, theyre 10 but they're on pre-order. So a book that you think is going to be a book of the year, but you haven't yet read it. And for me, that is definitely Stoneblind. This is her retelling of the life of Medusa. Natalie Haynes is probably best known for Pandora's Jar and 1,000 Ships, and she's well known for telling Greek myth retellings, but with a feminist twist. And I feel like Medusa is a character who is getting a bit more recognition. People are kind of sympathising with her a lot more. And her story is just very, very tragic. So I'm really, really keen to see Natalie Haynes' take on her. And it is coming out in September, so I don't have long to wait. Question number 3 is, theyre 10, but they're a red flag. And Kieran said that this could either be there is something problematic in the book to do with any of the characters, or it could be the author. I feel like we'll be going down a dark lane if I try and go for author and all of the many authors who have problematic things to their name. So I am going to go for the book itself, having like problematic characters, problematic themes, but I do otherwise love it and think it's a fantastic book. And for me, that is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. You know, I am a West Yorkshire girl, so even if there are problematic things in a Bronte book, I'm still gonna love it because it's my home. These are my gals. But you know, locking up your wife in an attic, all the while gaslighting your current flame into thinking that there is not a mad woman up in the attic. Dressing up as a Romani fortune teller in order to manipulate your current flame into telling you whether or not she's in love with you. And of course, there are very strong themes of colonialism, one of the main characters being a missionary, which are a bit questionable, but it's still a brilliant book and I still love it. And if you are wanting a bit more critical analysis on Jane Eyre and like the problematic themes but why we still love it, then I would really recommend that you listen to, I don't believe it's called Hot and Bothered, but that was the original name of the podcast, which is a romance book podcast who in their 3rd season focused entirely on Jane Eyre. It's hosted by Vanessa Sultan, who you might know from Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. Currently, they are actually doing the same treatment to Pride and Prejudice, and I'm really enjoying that. So that's probably the name that you'll be able to find it under. Either way, I'm going to link it down below because it's a really interesting listen and very informative on why it is that we keep coming back to Jane Eyre and how we can riddle out some of the problematic red flag aspects of it. Question number 4 is, theyre 10 but they're over 100 years old. And is that really an issue? That wouldn't dissuade me personally. You know, a lot of my favourite books are over 100 years old. I love a good classic me. And actually the book that I wanted to talk about was the one that Kieran used, which was Frankenstein by Shelley, and basically everything that I would have said is a copy and paste of what he said. You know, Go for the 1818, not the 1831. Just a brilliant book, one of the very first pieces of science fiction, but you know, as somebody who is not really a big science fiction reader, something that I could actually enjoy, because it focuses, I think, so much more on like the humanity of this monster, and you know, this whole ethical question of who is the monster out of Dr. Frankenstein or his creation, and these conversations about playing God and how we treat people who are different to you. I just love it. I think it's brilliant. And yes, Kieran, great answer. I'm gonna steal it. Question number 5 is, there are 10, but they were studied at school. And that can often be a bit of a downer for books for many people. For me personally, I don't feel like having to study things in school ever really dampened my enjoyment of them. I really liked being able to really sink into a book for many weeks. I think if I ever had issues with the books that I read at school, it was the book themselves and the fact that I was having to sit with them for so very long when I just didn't like the book. But it was something that I actually missed. You know, I did a history degree, but there were a few modules that I did that were very text-based or book-based. For example, I did a couple of Shakespeare modules, and I kind of missed being able to really sit with a Shakespeare play for months and months. Whereas at uni, you're often reading 1 or 2 plays every single week and having to just bash through them. So like I say, I just kind of miss being able to sit with it for a while and really deeply analyse it. And for me, I was looking back at the books that I studied at school, and I think my favourite by far was definitely King Lear by William Shakespeare. Back to the Shakespeare. I have such fond memories of this play because it was the last play that we did for school. We studied it during upper sixth form. A lot of my friends were doing English literature, so I remember like just sitting in our sixth form common room, kind of like batting quotes from Shakespeare backwards and forwards, like the complete nerds that we were. Some of my friends were actually in a performance of King Lear, and that was really fun to go to. And yeah, it's still my favourite tragedy of the ones that I've read by Shakespeare. I've not read all of them, but so far that is my favourite. And then the final question is, there are 10, but they leave you with emotional damage. And I really wanted to not say A Little Life, because that could definitely be an answer, and it did emotionally wreck me when I read it. I've currently got a friend who is reading A Little Life, and every now and then I'm just like, how you doing? How you getting on? Have you got to the bit yet? Have you? I mean, there are a lot of bits in A Little Life, but like, where have you got them up to? How are you doing? But I didn't want to say that. Instead, I am going to say When I Hit You by Meena Kandasamy. This is a really harrowing, kind of semi-autobiographical story about the main character who was in a domestic abuse situation, and it just really hit me when I was reading it. Just the way that her husband was treating her, isolating her, verbally, sometimes physically abusing her, trying to make her feel small and insignificant, and the ways that she was trying to fight against that. And especially through the story, it's a lot about her controlling her own narrative as a way of reclaiming her strength. And it was so brilliant, and I loved it so much. But there were so many times with that book where I was having to put the book down because I was so angry. That doesn't happen very often. Usually I can kind of power through with hard topics, but for something about that just made me viscerally angry. But it's brilliant, and I highly recommend it if it's something that you feel like you can read. So there we go, just a short but sweet tag. Thank you very much, Kieran, for tagging me. I am going to list a bunch of people down below who I also tagged to do this. Let me know any of your answers to these questions down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.